What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Wednesday, December 13th edition of the NBA Lineup Generator video. I'm your host, Adam Scherer. You can follow me on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. We have 9 NBA games today, a bunch of news that we are still waiting on, some other pieces of news that have broke already. And as always, we are going to use the Lineup Generator to take a look at the DraftKings and FanDuel slates for tonight, see how things look right now. Obviously, things are likely to change by lock, so I highly recommend signing up and using this tool for yourself if you haven't already. I'll have more for you on that later. But first, make sure that you give this a like if you're watching on YouTube, like it if you're watching on Twitter as well. It helps us out quite a bit. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you get an alert when our shows go live. As usual, we are going to start on the DraftKings side, and the first option that you get is the type of lineup that you want. Whether you want to see all different types of lineups, only chalky lineups, balanced lineups, contrarian lineups, whatever it may be, choose the one that suits best what you're looking for your contests. If you're playing smaller field contests, you might want to look at chalky. If you're playing your larger field stuff, looking at contrarian is probably better. And that's what I'm going to choose for this video. Your next option is whether or not you want to lock a player into all of the lineups that you're presented with. I don't necessarily recommend doing that if you are generating or choosing a lot of lineups. But if, for example, you're only playing one lineup and you know you want Jonas Valanciunas, you may as well just click in here, save yourself some time, and that way every lineup that you get will have him in there. But for this video, I am going to skip that. And then we get to the next page where you start getting the lineups. Now, if you're not familiar with what the lineup generator does, it is utilizing our player projections, ownership projections, and simulation models all on the back end, simulating this slate tens of thousands of times, and then presenting you with lineups that project to be profitable over the long run. And you then have the ability to go through those lineups and select the ones that you like the most. On this screen, you can see everything that you would want to know about the lineup, the total salary used, the median projection, the ownership, how it compares to alternatives, both in terms of projection and ownership, is available for you here on this slider. And then you get the individual players with all of that information about them as well: salary, fantasy projection, ownership, and then also the ability to customize your lineups once you've gotten them. So say you get a lineup and you really like the way that it looks overall, but you don't like one or two specific players. Maybe for whatever reason you don't want Denny Avdia and Danilo Gallinari together. You can just click the arrows here next to Avdia and then scroll down to $6,100 because that is his salary, and just click the arrows here. You can replace him with RJ Barrett, Brandon Miller, etc. in essentially 2 clicks. You could go cheaper and then upgrade Gallo to someone else. There's ways you can do it. So it does give you that customization option if you like the overall foundation of a lineup, but maybe don't like a player or two in it. And then you just either save the lineup if you like it, discard it if you don't. And you can save up to 20 lineups, export up to 20 lineups to whichever site you're playing on. In this case, we are looking at DraftKings at the moment. So I'm going to save the next 20 lineups, and then we can go to the next screen where on the left-hand side, we have all of the lineups that we saved. And on the right-hand side, we have a very useful page or table where we can see the exposures we have to every player, because of course it's difficult. You're going through these lineups. You're saying, oh, I really like this one. I don't like this one. Saving the ones you like. It's very difficult to actually keep track in your head of how much you have of different players. So that's all available for you right here. And say you get to this screen and you see Chris Dunn is at the top. You don't want 55%. You only want 40. You could click him. It's going to highlight all of your Chris Dunn lineups. You then just go in, discard the ones that you don't like, and then scroll down here to get more lineups and replace it with 3 lineups that don't have Chris Dunn. That would very quickly get him from 55 to 40%, for example. So another customization option is right there. Now looking at the players we are actually getting to, and Chris Dunn is showing up 55% of the lineups that we selected. Jordan Clarkson is out for Utah. Remains to be seen what their starting lineup looks like. But we currently have Chris Dunn only projected for 18 minutes, about 18 to 19 DraftKings points. We just don't have a lot of value on this slate right now. So he is somebody that if more players get ruled out by lock, Chris Dunn will start to probably look worse. But right now he is looking like a useful piece on a slate that doesn't have a lot of cheap value, but does have a lot of guys to pay for. Isaiah Jackson, same kind of thing. $4,100 backing up Miles Turner in a game that has nearly a 260 fantasy point total. He looks like a pretty good value just because of the game environment and the minutes that he's likely to get behind Turner. If more value opens up, he becomes less useful, but as is right now, he looks pretty good. Jonas Valanciunas, only $6,700 in a very good matchup, taking on the Washington Wizards. Looks really good for him. Looks really good for Herb Jones at just $5,500. Colin Sexton should benefit from Jordan Clarkson being out as well. Whether or not he starts, you should see increased playing time. We are still waiting on some injury news from Phoenix. They haven't released their injury report yet. We do know they'll be without Josh Okogie. So right now we have Chimezie Metu actually projected to be pretty useful. He's showing up 30% of the time right now. He is center only, but we have him projected for about 25 to 26 minutes, 21 DraftKings points, and on this slate right now, that's enough to get him into lineups. Similar with Danilo Gallinari, another guy that probably will just drop off as more value opens up. But if the slate started right now, he would be a useful piece. And then we start getting back to some other players you actually are going to feel good about. CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram taking on the Wizards both look very good. And then the trio of Raptors with Dennis Schroeder, Jakob Poeltl, and Scotty Barnes all taking on the Hawks in another one of the most appealing spots on the slate. So that's how things are shaping up on the DraftKings side. Now we can flip over to FanDuel and take a look at how things look there. But before we do that, if you have not already signed up and are not already using this tool, highly recommend checking it out. We created it with single entry, 3 max, 20 max players specifically in mind, because one of the most difficult things about getting into DFS and improving at DFS in 2023, when there are already so many good players, is finding the balance between getting quality data, using quality tools that are going to allow you to compete at a high level, but not paying so much for those tools that it's basically impossible to profit at the stakes that you're playing. You know, we have the full Sims package for players that can afford up, around $200 a month. It's a great tool, great package. I highly recommend it if it makes sense for the amount of money that you're playing. But if you're playing 20, 40, 60, 80, dollars a night, it's going to be very tough for you to turn a profit if you are laying out $200 a month for a tool. So this is available for $14.95 a week. It, like I said, utilizes our player projections, ownership projections, and those simulation models that have been so popular to talk about. And it gives you the end result. So you don't have quite as much input, but you do still have customization ability at the end. You can change or adjust your lineups the way I showed you, and you're getting lineups that do project to be profitable in the long run based on our models and our projections. Highly recommend checking it out if you haven't already. Use the link in the description below if you're watching on YouTube. Use the link in the tweet below if you are watching on Twitter. Now, looking at the FanDuel side, I'm also going to go with contrarian lineups there, and we're not going to lock anybody in. And then we get to the lineups. Going to save the first 20, just like I did on DraftKings, and we can see the overall player exposures. Generally on FanDuel, they look a little bit better because pricing is generally softer. So we have Isaiah Jackson at the top. He is power forward eligible, which is really nice. So he's showing up 75% of the time. Then we get to Scotty Barnes at 8,900 in that great matchup against Atlanta. Trae Young, Damian Lillard, Herb Jones, all coming in at 35%. They all look good. DeJounte Murray at 30%. We get to a couple of bucks here, Bobby Portis and Giannis Antetokounmpo, both coming in 25%. Again, great matchup for them taking on the Pacers in a game with a near 260 total. Jonas Valanciunas at 6,600 against the Wizards. Looks just as good here as he did on DraftKings. Metu and Dunn we are still getting to, just not quite as much as we were on DraftKings. And then getting to some Brandon Ingram at 7,800. Looking through these lineups quickly, nothing really stands out in terms of being particularly low owned or popular, but this second lineup does give us 91% aggregate ownership. And if you scroll through, you can see that there's nothing that stands out as being overly contrarian, with the exception of a 2% owned Obi Toppin and a 4% owned Drew Eubanks. Neither one of those plays are great, but Toppin is in a game that has a very, very high total. Eubanks is playing for a Suns team that is a bit banged up right now, although I'm assuming Nurkic will be playing tonight, so you're probably just getting backup center minutes, but he is only 3,900. The rest of it looks pretty appealing, though. You're getting to Maxey in a good spot against Detroit at 9K. Jalen Green, only 6,400, plenty of upside there. DeJounte Murray is pretty cheap at 7,700. Hayward at 6,900. Barnes in a great matchup against the Hawks at 8,900. Kuzma at 7,900, rounding this one out. So a pretty solid lineup. Jackson, Scotty Barnes, and Jalen Green, the only players in double digits in that lineup. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you for checking out the video. Be sure to sign up using the link in the description below. And other than that, good luck on your lineups tonight.